Hi, this is Scott Dudley from Funnel Fella Radio, and today we're up to episode number 47, and this one's going to be a little bit different as I'm not really going to be talking much about funnels at all, but instead going to be talking about the importance of building your own platform online for branding purposes, and also a method that I use to kill the procrastination that many people suffer from as well. So this method that I'm going to be talking about was invented by a guy called Jerry Seinfeld, which most of you should have heard of, particularly the older people that are listening. His show was extremely popular in the late 80s, 90s, and I think it might have even continued into the early 2000s as well. I enjoyed his show. I probably watched the episodes a little bit too much, as I got a little bit sick of it eventually. And in my opinion, Ray Romano with Everybody Loves Raymond, that was a better program as far as American comedy goes. But that said, I did enjoy watching Jerry Seinfeld and I did find it quite funny. So talking about Jerry Seinfeld, when he was an up and coming comedian, he made the commitment to write one joke per day. Now, this was nothing huge, just one funny line, just anything that he could basically write down as something that he's accomplished for the day that's related to his up-and-coming career as a comedian. Okay, and on top of that, he had a big calendar of the whole year on his wall in his apartment. And every time he wrote a joke, he put a red X on that particular day. And before too long, he had a growing chain of red X's on the calendar. And this was a visual reminder of the consistent work that he'd put in. So you can just imagine it, after 6 months worth of writing out a joke every day and putting an X in his calendar. And this is a calendar of the entire year on his wall. You can imagine how many red X's he would have seen on the wall, after 6 months or even longer. And what kept him motivated each day was the fear of breaking the chain. And for him, it was important. The most important thing was just not to break that chain. And that's basically what kept him going, because each day he'd add another red cross. And, over time it grew larger and larger and larger. And, he got a kick out of watching the chain grow each day, because he knew that even if it was a small action, but by putting in that small action every single day over a long period, then it was going to significantly help to, propel his career. And, the rest is history. I'm not exactly sure what his net worth is, but I don't know. I'd have a guess that it would be at least 100 million. So it certainly worked for him. And it's just something to keep in mind. For anybody that's aspiring to achieve something worthwhile, that rather than, slaving away and putting in a lot of effort day after day, and then sort of losing the motivation, if you can just put in a small amount of effort each day and continue to do it over a long period, then that's going to compound and accumulate. And the net result of that is going to be huge. So the reason why I'm explaining this is that I personally had a New Year's resolution at the end of last year of creating 2 podcasts a week for the whole year in 2020. Now, keep in mind that I had tried podcasting once before, about 6 years ago. I think I did about 6 episodes and then I stopped. And for the last almost 10 years, I've been trying to build up some sort of platform online, create an email list. But, I'd always start it, and then within a few weeks, usually about 4 to 6 weeks, then I would lose the motivation and I would stop. And it started off with blog posts. I was trying to build a blog where I was writing blog posts. And then it sort of progressed into emails, where I was writing daily emails, which were then put onto the blog, sort of Russell Brunson calls them Seinfeld style emails, which is sort of fits in well with this podcast, but that's just a complete coincidence. And also Ben Settle, he's well known for writing those types of Seinfeld emails as well, and he does an amazing job at that. But yeah, I struggled to have the creativity to continue to come up with ideas, and I just couldn't do it. But yeah, we fast forward from that to the end of last year, and I thought, well, come on, I've really got to start to, brand myself and become well known online. Because if people type in my name in the search engines, then really nothing comes up because I don't have the online presence. So what I decided to do was 2 podcasts per week for the entire year, which would end up being 104 or around 100 podcasts for the year. And the reason that I chose podcasting for a start was, even though it was a little bit out of my comfort zone, once you get going, it's a lot easier to actually talk and do a podcast rather than sit down and plan and write a blog post or try to come up with some sort of creative story for an email. Just for me, it's a much easier medium to actually get the job done. And rather than doing one every day, so this is not along the same lines as Seinfeld of a daily thing, but I wanted an achievable goal that I could actually, I could make it happen. And if I was going to do, say, 5 podcast episodes a week or 7 a week, then that's just not realistic and it wasn't going to happen. So I chose 2, and we're nearly halfway through the year now. As I'm recording this podcast, it's Tuesday, the 9th of June. And like I mentioned, we're up to episode number 47. So, I'm well on track if I can continue, which I'm sure I will, to hit the 100 mark sometime around Christmas, which would be pretty exciting because not only am I doing the podcast, all of these are also ending up on YouTube. And I've also hired a VA as well to help me to put them onto a blog and transcribe them as well. So the SEO that I'll be getting from those over a period of time is just going to be so useful to start to brand me as an expert rather than having nothing come up in the search engines when people are wanting to either buy products off me or hire me to build or optimize funnels. And it's one thing that Russell Brunson talks about a lot as well, where it's really important to build that online platform and to be publishing. Otherwise, you've got a huge disadvantage, and it makes it a lot harder to get ahead and to be actually perceived as an expert. And what really inspired me was, on top of what I just mentioned about Russell, was when I also heard Steve Larson saying that initially he absolutely hated the idea of publishing. Very much like me, I didn't want to get involved in it at all. But once he finally committed to it, it ended up changing his life. And that was enough inspiration and motivation for me to start to actually do it myself and to keep doing it and to keep a regular schedule over a long period. Knowing full well that, the first few episodes that I do, they're not going to be very good. And even probably the ones that I'm doing now aren't that fantastic either, maybe except for the interviews. But, the most important thing to me is that I'm actually doing them. I'm getting better at communicating my ideas. And, whether I don't get any downloads at all doesn't particularly worry me at this stage. It's just a matter of getting them done and making some progress. And getting all of that content put onto the blog. So it sort of might sound old school, but the key to finally making it happen to me was creating a SMART goal. Now, everybody's heard of SMART goals, but even though it's a really old cliche, and I know that this is nothing groundbreaking, following the SMART goal system was the key to actually making it happen for me and to even make it to episode number 47. Okay, so I'll just quickly run through the SMART goal system and sort of how it related to my situation. So S is for specific. So I had a specific goal of doing 2 podcasts every single week. And, after each week, I could mark 2 crosses off that chain. I don't actually have a wall calendar or calendar on my wall at home. My calendar's in my head, and I'm not doing them every day, but the principle is still the same, where I had a specific goal of doing 2 every week, and at the end of that week, I can cross off those 2. And as long as I keep doing them, that chain just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And getting back to the specific part about it, 2 episodes a week adds up to 104 episodes for the year. So that is the specific goal that, I set out to achieve, and I'm halfway towards achieving that goal. So M is measurable. So in some ways, I guess that sort of ties in with the goal of 2 per week as well. So it ends up to be 104 for the year. Just so happens that specific and measurable there sort of relate to the same sort of thing, but you get what I mean, where, the specific is not some wishy-washy goal. It has to be an actual specific target that you're trying to achieve, and then measurable needs to be some sort of number so that you can measure it. And then A for achievable. So this is sort of what I was referring to with, if you try to set the bar too high and do 1 every single day, then in my particular case, that just wasn't going to happen. There was no way that was achievable. And, I would have been lucky to get through 2 weeks and to still be on target. So by setting the bar reasonably low, you've still got to plan out these episodes and actually do them. So, it's not something that you can just think up in 5 minutes and then it's done. You actually got to put a bit of planning into it. Then you've got to actually record them. But 2 a week is quite achievable, considering the workload that I've got, actually performing the work that I do, because it's hard to fit everything in. Then R was for relevant. So maybe in this case, the relevance isn't so important, but, like I'm helping people out with tech support, I'm building funnels, I'm optimizing funnels. So obviously doing a podcast, talking about funnels is relevant. So that ties in nicely there. And then the last part of this equation was T for time-based. So the aim was, I was looking, at 1 year time period. I wanted 104 episodes, or at least 100 episodes done by the end of the year. So, and then at the end of this year, then, I'll set another target. It might be the same target. It might be 3 episodes per week. But yeah, the initial target for me was that 104 episodes by the end of this year. And as of the 9th of June, I'm well on track for that, as I've already mentioned a few times. So that's sort of a system that you can use. Jerry Seinfeld's calendar system, where you're just making small micro commitments, either on a daily basis or, in my particular case, 2 a week. And you just keep marking the cross off the list. And the whole idea is to not break the chain and just to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, because over time, the effort that you put into it, even if it's just a small effort each time, it accumulates, it compounds, and before you know it, you're starting to get amazing results. And where this podcast will lead for me, who knows? But so far, I'm enjoying it, and hopefully, I'm getting some people listening, and hopefully, I'm giving out a bit of value. But anyway, that's pretty much all I've got for today. Hopefully that sort of was useful, and I'll catch up with you next time for the next episode of Funnel Fella Radio. Take care and bye for now.